Hello everybody, hope you're enjoying the Euros. This time around, of course, England, Scotland and Wales have all qualified and England and Scotland play each other. So to celebrate, we're going to talk to three former players, one from each of the home nation camps, about what it means to play for your country at a big tournament. Representing England, we have Paul Ince. Representing Scotland, we've got Colin Calderwood. And representing Wales, we've got Sam Vokes. Paul and Colin famously played each other at Euro 96, and Sam scored an epic goal in the quarterfinals in 2016 against Belgium. We've got three key themes, and first of all, what does it mean to play for your country and represent them at a major tournament?
You were already a regular in the England squad when Euro 96 came along, but still, do you remember where you were when you got acknowledgement you were going to be in the squad for the home tournament?
I think it's kind of strange because, you talk about being in the squad, on a consistent basis. But when I went to Inter Milan, the team wasn't playing that well. So I wasn't playing that well, trying to embed yourself into a new culture, new country, new way of playing football. I remember Eddie Venables coming over and saying, "Listen, Paul, we're just going to take you out of the England squad for, so you can settle down, in Italy." So for about 6 months, I wasn't involved. So then you start thinking about, Euros are coming up, that type of stuff. And then he came over to watch me play against Napoli, away at Napoli, and I think we won 2-1, so I think I played really well. And then after that, he put me back in the squad. But I think until then, you're always kind of worrying, if you're not playing and someone else is in form back in England, because I remember I was in Italy, so I wasn't aware of what was going on back in England. And then, if there's someone else who's playing well, and you think, well, maybe he's going to take my spot. But no, once I got back in the squad, and Terry said to me, "Listen, Paul, you're always going to be in the squad. You're always going to be playing. I just want you to settle down in Italy first." So that was a worry at the time, but obviously once I got back in there, I was pretty confident I was going to start most of the games.
I mean, even for all you achieved and all the honours and all the caps you got, is it still one of those moments? This is what you've worked a career for, to be able to represent your country, and especially with it, the games en masse being at Wembley Stadium.
Yeah, I think it's not something, could you think about, Ken, we kind of waited, 30 years before we could have another major tournament in our country, obviously since 1966. So you don't really have that kind of dream growing up as a kid that you can actually play in a massive major tournament like that in your home country. It was only when we started, it was starting to get mentioned around 92 that we might have it in England, and, you just want to be part of it. Obviously, we missed out in 94. The World Cup in America, which we should have gone through, which was disappointing. Because I think as an England player, you want to play World Cups. I think they're the major ones, So to miss out in 94, you're kind of hoping that, you'll be part of 96. So I think the buzz around, obviously, the fact that when it was confirmed that it was going to be in England, it was going to be at Wembley, you played all your group games at Wembley, it kind of gave you a certain buzz and excitement, just because we hadn't had it in our country for so long.
And then I suppose in the run-up to it, obviously, the overriding image I have, Incy, is the famous incident with Gaza and the chair and the pre-build-up. But once you were off the naughty step and back in the country, do you get a sense of it welling up that week before the first ball is kicked? Do you get a sense of excitement in the country, or do you isolate yourselves off?
Well, I think it was tough, really, because obviously coming back from Hong Kong and all the stuff that had gone on out there. Listen, I've always said, Clem, that it was a boys' night out. It got a little bit too far, and we saw the pictures that came back from the back of that. So when we kind of landed and we had a couple of days off, and then Al tells me, right, let's get back into the swing of things. And the press were absolute, at the time, diabolical. They were terrible. Listen, we accepted there was going to be an element of criticism, but some of them went a little bit too far. They really, really did. So it was very negative even before we had our first game against Switzerland. You know, I think, you know, we knew the pressure was on. We knew we had to probably, you know, not lose that game, at least try and get something from it. But I think we were fortunate that we had so many, you know, great players, leaders, men, characters, where it kind of brought us closer together, if that makes sense. You know, it really did. So we were a close unit anyway. But the criticisms that we had coming back, it kind of brought us close together, even closer. So that kind of, I mean, what the press did kind of benefited the way we played. You know, that as much as it was a negative, it was a positive for us, because we had this siege mentality where, listen, we don't want to give them any excuses. We don't give them any excuses. And you know, the first game wasn't the greatest game in the world, but you know, I always say that if you can pick something up, a point, 3 points in the first game, it stands in good stead for the next games. And you could just sense, you know, with the songs, you know, the fans. It was a sunny month. You know, you know, you could just feel the excitement. You know, just going on the team coach towards Wembley and all the cars and the fans, you know, hanging out with the gloves, scarves, and all that stuff. It was brilliant, really good.
I mean, especially as a London boy as well, you must really feel it. I know you've always worn the 3 lions with pride. You've captained your country, but that moving towards the national stadium in your own country with all that fervour going on, the feeling you must tingle now thinking about it, don't you?
Well, not really. I was kind of good about it. Because obviously when people talk about Euro 96, I was thinking about, you know, losing to Germany. So, you know, but as far from as a country point of view, and, you know, being a London boy, you know what I mean, coming from most of my life from Dagenham, you know, and it was just good to bring the whole nation together again. And I think we needed something like the Euro 96 in our own country, to bring everybody together, not just football fans, but just the whole country in general. Even non-football fans, you know, were getting excited about it, you know, and, you know, it was great for the economy, it was great for our country, and yeah, just the buzz, just walking out on Wembley, singing the national anthem, looking up at, you know, in the stadium and just seeing so many, you know, England fans and scarves and singing it. You know, they were the great days. You know, where fans just wanted to sing and support your team, and you know, the more further we got, you know, the more people we saw out on the streets, the more people we saw hanging out of houses, and you know, good luck charms. I mean, we tried to avoid from reading the papers, just to try and eliminate that kind of pressure from outside. And yeah, when I think about it, yeah, there's some great moments. It does give you a little tingle, you know, and you wish you could just, you know, start all over again sometimes, you know.
And presumably it flips from siege mentality, wanting to get one back over on the media, to a sense of responsibility. Does that come into it, to the nation, because you want to replicate the enthusiasm that they've got?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, you're probably right. We had the responsibility anyway, because obviously we knew that the criticism that we were getting back from Hong Kong, we knew what the public were reading. We knew they were reading what the press was saying. So we had a responsibility really to go out there, you know, and perform, because we knew if we didn't perform, it wouldn't have been just the press, it would have been our own fans. And, you know, I think, you know, the Scotland game was so pivotal. I think that's when the tide turned as far as the negativity into the positivity. And we could sense that. We could sense that, you know. And I also think the fans were brilliant. I mean, I think they knew we had a very good side. We knew we had a great chance of winning. There was no negativity from the fans, but we knew we had a responsibility to ourselves, you know, and our country, you know, to go and perform.
So as you went into the Scotland game, was it a sense of, right, we've got to get the business done here? Or was there still that old rivalry thing going on as well? Because arguably it was the perfect game to light the touch paper, wasn't it?
It was absolutely spot on. And obviously, as I said before, especially after the fact that, you know, the Swiss game wasn't the greatest game, we got a point, but we knew that the Scotland game was the one where we could change everything. And we know the old rivalry between England and Scotland. The atmosphere was electric, because I mean the Scots fans, they make just as much noise as the English fans, you know, and you know, the atmosphere was electric. And I think we were a little bit nervous at the start. I don't think we really played well the first half. So when Jamie Redknapp came on, You know, that we started to play a bit of football and we looked like a decent team. And but listen, I mean, we always talk about the Gaza goal. We always talk about, but I always look back on that game and think, you know, we got the early goal with Alan Shearer, and then we give the penalty away. That was a major moment for us, because I think if that had gone in, it could have been a completely different game. And you know, on the pitch, you kind of maybe sense it that, you know, we need to win this game. We kind of thought we've got to play the Dutch next, so we need to win this game. And we know how much it meant to the English fans against the Scottish team to win. We knew that. So, you know, Dave Seaman making that wonderful save was a massive turning point for us. And then, you know, we got the infamous the Gaza goal, you know. And I mean, after that, as I said, once we won 2-0 and we sat down and everything just turned. You could just see everything turning just towards us. Oh, we got a chance there. We got a chance there. And the press changed their kind of mindset, the way that they looked at us, and the fans just got right behind us. They really did.
Yeah, I mean, what a turning point, that penalty, because how quickly things flip, don't they? Because I would argue the performance against the Dutch, the 4-1 win, was, well, I mean, it was the England performance of at least a generation. It was just that the whole country was euphoric after that.
Well, it's funny though, because obviously that Scotland game gave us so much confidence, you know, and it was a great performance to go into that Holland game, and we were kind of, you know, I wouldn't say concerned about the Dutch, but they were kind of the total football team. You know, they were the ones who were playing the Johan Cruyff type of football. So, you know, so we knew it was going to be a tough game, and we actually thought that Toby Venables was going to sit us down and say, listen, lads, we're going to defend deep. We're going to try and, you know, nick the ball and try and counter-attack. And he went, no. He said, we get it, we play. We're at Wembley. You know, we're in front of our own fans. You know, we've got some great players in this side. So we're not going to sit back, you know, allow them to put pressure on us. We're going to go and take the game to them. And we was like, are you mad? Are you sure? Yeah, are you sure? They said, no, that's what we're going to do. And that's what we did. It gave me so much confidence to do that. And, you know, when you talk about England performances, that's got to be one of the best ever, because we totally outplayed them. The only sad thing was I got booked that game, so I missed the Spanish game, which I wasn't too happy about. And I think Terry took me off about 70 minutes, and I was absolutely fuming. So I knew I couldn't play against the Spanish. So I was screaming at him, you know, why the hell have you taken me off for? And he went, well, you know, because I want to bring Placky on and see if David Platt can play that role for the Spanish game. At the time, I wouldn't have it. I was fuming. But obviously, looking back at it now as a manager, I would have probably done the same thing. But as far as the performance, as far as the goals that we scored from Teddy and Shearer, I mean, they were total football games. And, you know, you talk about golden generations. You know, we've seen it with talk about Lampard and Rio and Beckham and that stuff. That was a golden generation we had there, with those players. But they weren't just players, they were men, they were leaders, they were captains. And the same was it for 98 in the World Cup. But it was a massive result for us. And, you know, I'll tell you a funny quick story while I'm here. So I'm walking out for the national anthem. So we're all lining up. Okay, and as we sing the national anthem, we're like, everyone's looking around to see where their wives are, or their girlfriends, or their mums and dads, or friends, and I can't see my wife. So I'm thinking, looking around. All of a sudden, the national anthem finishes, and we go on the pitch, and I'm trying to look for my wife, and all of a sudden I see this hand stand up and waving. It's my wife, and she's wearing all orange.
No.
And I said, Gaza, can you believe that? He said, what? I said, can you see this Claire up there? So she's wearing orange, and we're playing Holland, and she's wearing all orange with an orange handbag. I stood honestly for the first 5 minutes, I couldn't get it out of my head during the game. I was like, wait till I see her. She's gonna. I said, she's lucky we won. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was a funny story at the time. So yeah, we beat the Dutch, and that was it. Yeah, we was full of confidence, mate.
Paul, I've got to ask you, I mean, you obviously disappointed to miss playing in the quarterfinal win on penalty against Spain, but sitting there in the stands, you must have got a sense of the euphoria, the feel-good factor in that stadium, and therefore the country, just being able to occasionally observe what was going on.
You know what, Clem? It was a tough one, because we knew the atmosphere was electric. We knew that every game that we win, there was a sense of belief that we could go and actually win the whole tournament, and you can see that in people's faces. People were getting excited. Fans were getting excited. Fans were singing louder. And then on the other flip side, I'm thinking, if we lose, that's my last game. You're 96. So I'm praying, I'm begging, make sure we win. Make sure we win. And then I'm thinking, well, if we do win, does he still play the same team that beat Spain that plays against Germany? So am I going to play anyway? So as much as I'm thinking about, the electricity of the fans and the feeling, and I'm also thinking, am I going to play again in this tournament? Whether we win, lose. So there was a lot of things going through my head at the time. But then once we obviously had the penalty shootout, that's probably the loudest I've ever seen it at Wembley. It really, really was, because then you're talking about semi-finals. And then I think there's a realisation that we have got the team. Because I always thought the Spanish were the best team in that tournament. And I thought if we could get past them, then I think we'd be favourites to win it,
Sam, do you remember where you were and what you were doing when the news came through that you'd been selected for the Welsh squad in 2016?
Yeah, I do. It's obviously on the eve of another tournament now. You kind of recollect those memories, remember where you were. It was, for me personally, it was off the back of a good season. I'd just been promoted with Burnley as champions, and it was a great season for myself. But when there's 23 names to be picked, you're still worried you might not make it. And I've been involved a lot with Wales up to that point. I received I did my ACL, sorry, my cruciate the year before, so I missed out on a lot of the qualification campaign. But I was still nervous going into that selection, and I think we were in Portugal actually for a pre-camp trip, and unfortunately, as football is, the manager at the time, Chris Coleman, had to pick players and drop a couple.
I mean, obviously, you have a less direct route to the Welsh team, in so much as it was your grandpa born in Colwyn Bay. Does that change the dynamic in any way? Or once you've been selected for a country, despite the fact that you were born and grew up in another, do you immediately latch on and the whole fervour of being Welsh surrounds you?
I think I did, yeah. I think it came to me quite early in my career. Brian Flynn came up to me when I was almost just left school, to be honest. I was just 17 and playing for the first team at Bournemouth, and he met me on an away trip. I remember the conversation up in Scunthorpe. We had Scunthorpe the following day. We were staying overnight, and he met me at a hotel, and I was called up to the under-21s then, and from then on in, I just remember being fully committed to Wales and love representing them every time. And it's a great nation to be part of. Brian Flynn at the time brought a lot of lads through from, I suppose, the English system, really, that had grandparents or parents from Wales, and we all kind of knitted together, and we had a fantastic under-21 squad at the time.
I mean, as the tournament neared, and obviously a cluster of players that had near misses, first major tournament since 1958, all the rest of it, I'm trying to imagine the sense of excitement that's flowing around the squad.
Yeah, there was a huge amount of excitement. I think like I said, we went to Portugal for a week for a training camp. We came back, had the weekend off, and I remember flying to Sweden the week before for a pre-tournament friendly. We only had one at the time. I think the gaffer didn't want to have too many games and before the tournament, and watching the games like we did last night, the pre-tournament games, it kind of reminds you you can get over-egged with it, because we went out to Sweden that night and got absolutely battered, lost 3-0 away from home. Suddenly, everyone's doubting how good we are since we got here, and you're on the eve of a tournament. I remember Chris Coleman managed us well that day. We flew straight from Sweden to France at our base camp. We were meant to train the next morning, but he said, no, go away from the hotel. Enjoy yourself, go and have an evening meal, forget about football. We've got 4 days till Slovakia. It was our first game, and it was a time to chill out. So it was nice to get that break after a disappointing loss to Sweden, and I think it worked, because we went on and won our first game of the tournament against Slovakia.
I mean, for all you're there to be the utmost professional, as you're flying into France and you suddenly realise you're going to take part in one of the biggest tournaments in world football, are they proper pinch yourself moments?
Yeah, definitely. I think the rigmarole and everything around it kind of hits you as you land. We were based in a small town in the north of France, in Dinard, which was probably brilliant for us, really, because we were out the way of all the hype of kind of Paris and all the big cities where the games were being played. And Dinard being a small town, it was a lovely hotel on the coast, but the whole town, I remember the coach journey from the airport to our hotel. Obviously, they were French fans because they're French people, but you're seeing locals with Welsh flags hanging out of their doors and being flung above their house and out the windows. And I think they really embraced us from minute one, really. And it was a great feeling around the town. And only being a small town, we kind of got to know the locals within that month or so, and it was a nice feeling.
Yeah, and you'd previously watched that stuff on your TV of other tournaments. Suddenly you find yourself immersed in it. I mean, proper career high, isn't it?
Oh, it was amazing to be part of. Suddenly, you're not just flying into an international hotel. You've got a training facility, a media centre with Welsh branding everywhere. You've literally taken over this town in the north of France, and it was amazing to be part of. Like you say, pinch yourself moments, and suddenly the first game's coming around, and it is that kind of moment where you I think it lives with you forever. To get through that game was more of a relief, to be honest. And then, like you say, we were excited by the prospect of playing the tournament favourites in Belgium and all the names that you know to hand that represent them.
When you've been through the sort of career path that you have, and you've worked your way up the leagues and 3 promotions to the Premier League, but there have been challenges too, and loan spell as well, things working out and stuff. Is the one moment you will take from your career today whacking in the third against Belgium? Is that the moment, if I gave you one, that you would take away?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, if you could bottle up that moment and the emotion, I'm sure it'd be it'd be amazing to keep hold of. But it was one moment that will live with me forever. I think I've talked about it before. I didn't start that game, so I was on the bench, and I remember warming up. It was in Lille, which is kind of neighbouring town to Belgium, really, and it felt like an away game for ourselves. The amount of Belgian fans there, we had a little pocket of fans. We had loads out there, 20,000 odd, but it felt like a little pocket in the corner of Wales fans in the ground. And to score at that end really was a great feeling. I was on the bench before the game, so I remember spotting my dad and my brother and family in that corner.
Colin, I am trying to imagine what it feels like when you're an expat in the country a tournament's going to be played in, and you've worked your way up to the higher echelons of football, what it feels like to be selected for your country in a tournament like Euro 96.
Well, I mean, it was just to play for the national team with my career path, Mark, was very exciting and quite rewarding, because the journey starting in the 4th division to get through to the Premier League and then play with Tottenham, which is really the only avenue that would really have got me in there. It was the club I was playing for. So it was an accumulation of all those boyhood dreams. And I was going to say, try and enjoy it, but you get so... I found it very draining after games. So beyond the game, returning to the club, I can understand where fatigue and mental fatigue came into it. And that can only be born out of the excitement of playing for your country.
Do you remember where you were when you got the call or got the message or got told face-to-face that you were in the squad?
No, I don't. I think because the way the qualifying had gone and being in the team, it would have been a real shock not to be in the squad. And so it sort of evolved naturally a little bit. And there was a pre-camp as such where we went to America. And anyone who was picked for that, really, the intention was don't get injured and you'd be in the Euro 96 squad. So they were interesting games. And I must admit, as I remember now, the last few league games were the games where I was very conscious of not doing anything daft, not overstretching, not getting involved in contacts, in games that really weren't going to affect where we finished in the league or a European position, etc., etc.
So you were, I mean, it was such a big moment on your horizon that you were covering every base to make sure you maximize the possibility of your inclusion.
Yeah, I was very conscious of it, and you know, from the Christmas onwards, with Jurgen Klinsmann and myself, there was extra preparation. We used to go in on our days off and do some sort of training that he felt was appropriate for the summer, and he said, "Come in," and we used to do some sort of physical work on a Wednesday morning that obviously wasn't to the detriment for the team on the Saturday, but it was a build up, and I was very grateful for that. You know, that all that sort of extra counselling that I got.
Did it make a difference that it was being held in the country in which you were playing, and obviously against the old enemy as well?
Of course, of course it did. I think getting there was going to be exciting, no doubt about it. But the fact that it was going to be held in England, that was going to be accessible for so many more people, and then the excitement that obviously came with the tournament once it got started, it was just the perfect storm, really, in my football career.
I mean, have you got very sort of vivid memories of certain moments? I don't know, driving to a game outside the training camp, the hotel, where the Tartan Army was there en masse, and it gave that extra special tingle to it all?
Probably the lead into the first game against Holland, when we travelled from Warwick up to Villa Park, and as we drove round the streets approaching Villa Park, we actually saw Brian Martin, who'd been in some of the qualifying squads travelling to Latvia, etc., all around Eastern Europe, and he was there with his mates, friends, or family. And someone in the bus said, "There's Buff, and unbelievably, he was there as a shaven-headed centre half who played at Motherwell at the time, right involved with the Tartan Army, and that really struck home how unfortunate he wasn't to be inside the bus, but he was still very much enjoying the action, being part of the Tartan Army.
Was there a feeling that you were there to definitely be competitive, or was there an acceptance you were there to make up the numbers? You're far enough away with that question, I can get away with it.
It's a very good psychological question, because your mindset should be to compete. But my career path was an accumulation of getting to the top, and then suddenly those moments are, you should be competing and strive for a bit better, strive for something that is probably outside your comfort zone of what you think you're capable of, because you've been selected, you've done fairly well in the qualifying, and grow up, basically. Come on, grow up.
And England-Scotland game, was that just another level? You all knew full well what this meant to those that were there in the stadium with you, but also to an entire nation.
Yeah, man, it's a magnificent fixture to have at any time, and obviously within the tournament and being the second game after we'd both drawn the first game, it was set perfect. It was on a Saturday afternoon. Teddy Sheringham played up front for England. I played centre half for Tottenham. Alan Shearer played up front for England. He played centre half. Colin Henry played centre half at Blackburn, and Shearer was at Blackburn. There was that club connection, association, and we had a hotel in St Albans on the Friday night, and up very early on the Saturday morning, had a walk through St Albans and reading a couple of the papers. And another thing that it's come to my memory now is a column by Alex Ferguson previewing the Scotland-England game, and sort of commenting on the centre halves, Hendrik Alderwood against Shearer Sheringham, and he was complimentary about me. So suddenly, Gary McAllister can pass it, so I should be able to. And then Alex Ferguson mentioned you in a Saturday column into what is a huge, massive game. And that filled me with so much self-confidence that I can't tell you.
Yeah, I'm loving this insight. I mean, there were plenty of act as if moments there, were there? You were properly coming out of your comfort zone with this.
Yeah, I think so. But I felt much more comfortable in the England game than I had in the Holland game. And that, again, I think that adds, it just shows you what experience of the situation does to you. And you feel more and more comfortable, you grow into it. Certainly I do. I can't say I would have felt comfortable having the Scotland-England game first. I think that would have been as hard, if not harder, than the Holland fixture.
Did you allow yourself to enjoy the occasion as you walked out, as you stood for the national anthems? Did you allow yourself to look around and see where your fans were and get caught up in the emotion of the moment and the raucous cackle?
No, I don't think I did. I really enjoyed the moment. The atmosphere was, as it brings a sort of vibrancy to your body. You just feel it. You don't actually have to look and see. You can't spot. I definitely couldn't spot friends or family within the stadium on that day. But you just feel you're in the middle of something that you would normally sit on the television and watch, and it's the normal cliched comments about it, but there's a little bit of a fuzz in your body, which is you don't get too often.
Are you a reflector? Do you ever allow yourself to sort of sit down and do you think back with pride? I represented my country in one of the most famous tournaments of them all.
Yes, I do. I must admit. Yeah.
You're allowed to. It's a great achievement, Colin.
It's and it's not something that I think I would be. I'm very good at, but when you see it getting replayed now, those games, and I think it's an iconic tournament for a lot of people in this country, as is the early stages of the Premier League and the football that people look very fondly on those early Premier League games, and they look back and think it was almost an iconic time. And yet you talk to some of the players that I deal with now, they've got no idea about people like Brian Robson. I mean, it's incredible to think they wouldn't know who Brian Robson was, hadn't heard of Brian Robson, Manchester United and England captain. I think there's that sort of acknowledging look, you probably don't say too much. Yeah. I think the one thing I would say to the Scotland players is the moment that is fond in all our memories was what happened after the England game. We ended up back at the hotel, had a meal, manager had to go and do match of the day. He allowed us a couple of drinks, which turned into one or two more. There was a little bit of a sing-song. And the next day is a bit hazy, probably a bit more for one or two and I won't mention them.
Yeah.
But we then produced probably our best performance of the tournament after that. And if that was the normal procedure in those days, it doesn't get done as much now, that relaxation moment and a couple of beers in mid-tournament. But that was something that I fondly remember, because it was the lads together, completely on their own, completely safe, not worried about anything.